NE. My name is Caitlin Dunn and I am the Corporate Communications Supervisor with the Greater Sudbury Police. Thank you for joining us for the conclusion of Project SATURATE, the 16-month investigation into individuals believed to be trafficking illicit drugs in Greater Sudbury and surrounding communities. This investigation was led by the Ontario Provincial Police Provincial Guns and Gangs Enforcement Team in collaboration with the Greater Sudbury Police Service Drug Enforcement Unit. Today, you will hear from Chief Sarah Cunningham of the Greater Sudbury Police Service, who will speak to the local impact, and Acting Detective Superintendent Andy Bradford of the Ontario Provincial Police Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau, who will speak to the overall project outcomes. At the conclusion of the remarks, media will have the opportunity to ask questions and conduct media interviews, as well as photograph the firearms exhibits here today. A formal media release and images of the media board have been sent electronically at 10 a.m. At this time, I would like to welcome Chief Sarah Cunningham.
Thanks very much, Caitlin. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour, Ani. Project SATURATE, as Caitlin indicated, was a 16-month investigation into drug trafficking activity affecting Greater Sudbury and our local and surrounding communities. This project represents an intensive and coordinated response to the opioid crisis, as detectives seized an estimated 73,000 potentially lethal doses of fentanyl. But first, I want to begin by addressing the devastating toll that this substance continues to take on our community here in Greater Sudbury. The impact of opioids cannot be overstated. These drugs are claiming lives, destroying families, and stretching our community's emergency responses and healthcare systems to their limits. Our first responders are seeing the effects firsthand, daily, often arriving on scenes of individuals at the throes of overdose, trauma, and in crisis. Over the past 3 years, our paramedics locally have responded to an average of 677 calls for suspected overdoses. Healthcare professionals, from emergency rooms to addiction and mental health workers, are overwhelmed by this ongoing crisis in our community. The annual emergency department visits in Sudbury and Manitoulin districts for opioid poisonings was 198.3 visits per 100,000 population, which is 10% higher than the Northern Ontario average and a staggering 83.4 higher than the province of Ontario. The resources required to support individuals living with substance use challenges are extensive, and the need continues to grow. But the impact goes beyond services. It touches our entire community. We know that here locally. We hear from our residents concerned about safety in their neighborhoods. We see families fractured by addiction. We see parents, siblings, children who live with the trauma, grief, and fear that come from watching a loved one, spiral into the grip of a drug dependency, often induced, we know, by illicit trafficking. So from January to April of this year, 42 lives have already been lost to the suspected drug poisoning locally here in Sudbury and Manitoulin. Each of these deaths is a tragic reminder of the devastating impact. The human cost is heartbreaking, and repeated exposure takes its toll on our frontline people. And this is why investigations like Project SATURATE matter. This investigation represents an intelligence-led, collaborative policing initiative between Greater Sudbury Police Service and the Ontario Provincial Police. Together, we work to identify and arrest individuals from Southern Ontario who are trafficking illicit drugs into our community, exploiting the vulnerabilities of people in need, and profiting from their pain. As part of the ongoing commitment to addressing organized crime, 3 GSPS detectives were seconded to the OPP's Provincial Guns and Gangs Enforcement Team, specifically for the purpose of this investigation. The enforcement team's dedication, their skill, and their relentless focus on holding offenders accountable were critical to the success of this project. These officers exemplify the kind of commitment needed to make a real difference in public safety. The work done through Project SATURATE, significant arrests and seizure of dangerous substances and firearms in the disruption of the flow of drugs into the community of Greater Sudbury. Acting Detective Superintendent Andy Bradford of the OPP, Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau, will speak to the overall project outcomes, but I would like to take a moment to highlight the significant seizures made here in our community. Detectives seized 6.72 kilograms of fentanyl, 9.416 kilograms of cocaine, and 3 firearms during the execution of search warrants here in Greater Sudbury. This is the proactive enforcement that can be done and saves lives. We have a responsibility to protect our members here in the Greater Sudbury, and knowing that we have knowingly bring them to harm. As your Chief of Police, I want to reaffirm our ongoing commitment to work with our policing partners across our jurisdiction to disrupt the major crime operations that pose direct threat to the community that we live in, our safety, our security, and our well-being. We will continue to use every available resource locally, provincially, and nationally to hold these offenders accountable and to ensure that Greater Sudbury remains a place where people feel safe, where they feel supported, and they feel protected. I will now turn it over to Acting Detective Superintendent Andy Bradford. So thank you, merci, miigwech.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Commissioner Thomas Creek, I want to thank the Greater Sudbury Police Service for their collaboration on this impactful investigation. As you heard from Chief Cunningham, the local impact of Project SATURATE cannot be understated. Chief Cunningham emphasized the devastation that fentanyl has caused, the lives it has claimed, and the impact it has had on the families of those who suffer from substance use disorders. Those impacts are the driving force behind joint force operations such as Project SATURATE. We work collaboratively and cohesively to hold offenders responsible for trafficking lethal drugs and bringing illegal firearms into the communities we serve. Project SATURATE began in January of 2024 to investigate drug trafficking activity in the Greater Sudbury area and surrounding communities. The investigative team consisted of the OPP-led Provincial Guns and Gangs Enforcement Team and the Greater Sudbury Police Drug Enforcement Unit. 2 Greater Toronto Area street gangs were involved in trafficking harmful substances, including fentanyl and cocaine, in Sudbury and the surrounding area. A total of 20 search warrants were executed in Sudbury and the Greater Toronto Area on May 8th and May 29th, 2025. These search warrants required collaboration from Project SATURATE investigators as well as resources from several other police agencies. We would also like to thank the UCCM Anishinaabe Police Service for collaboration on this investigation. Through our combined efforts, we prevented the following items from infiltrating our communities. 4 prohibited handguns, which you see here today, 12 kilograms of cocaine, 7.3 kilograms of fentanyl, more than $259,000 in Canadian currency, 1,000 methamphetamine tablets, a quantity of prescription medications, including more than 2,400 oxycodone tablets. We also seized electronic devices, a vehicle as offense-related property, and a boat as proceeds of crime. The estimated street value of the drugs seized is more than $1.9 million. 25 individuals are facing 197 charges under the Criminal Code and Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. 3 of those individuals remain outstanding and arrest warrants have been issued. Street gangs migrate to communities in rural and northern Ontario and travel great distances to distribute a high volume of illegal drugs to these communities, often bringing firearms and related violence with them. They expand into these communities for the sole purpose of increased criminal profits. The OPP-led Provincial Guns and Gangs Enforcement Team consists of members from 20 police services in Ontario and Quebec and is dedicated to disrupting the criminal activities of street gangs and reducing the number of illegal firearms entering our communities. As Chief Cunningham clearly stated, seizures such as this have a great impact in a community like Sudbury. The seizure of 4 handguns confirms that the presence of street gangs brings the potential for gun violence. We want to send a clear message. Law enforcement will not tolerate street gangs, drug trafficking, or illegal firearms in our communities. We will continue to join forces to proactively tackle this evolving issue, seizing as much fentanyl and as many illegal firearms as possible. We will endeavor to hold those involved in criminal activity responsible for their actions. In closing, I would like to recognize the investigative team members who have dedicated countless hours to Project SATURATE. Your commitment directly contributes to safer communities and a secure Ontario. Thank you.
So at this time, we'll take any media questions.
I covered Project Skylark a number of years ago when I dealt with the courts. Is this way bigger than Skylark?
I can't speak specifically to Project Skylark, but what I can say, sir, is that this investigation was significant. The seizure of 7.3 kilograms of fentanyl roughly equates to 73,000 potential street-level doses of fentanyl. So I think it's significant in this community and the surrounding area.
I think a lot of people, your own officers included, get frustrated. Every few years, police services will hold this sort of an announcement, and yet the next day, everyone's back out there as if the same thing is just going on. What level of frustration do police experience when they make a significant bust, forgive my slang, like this, and yet, you know, a week from now, we're still going to see people buying and selling on the street?
Well, I won't speak to specific frustration, but what I will say, sir, is that street gangs and organized crime are resilient. When one criminal element is removed, another will take its place. And we remain committed to allocating resources to address public safety issues like fentanyl trafficking and firearms offenses.
Okay. Is there any feeling that perhaps legislation needs to be changed so that when people are arrested, it's not merely possession for the purpose or things like that, that maybe more serious charges should be laid looking toward the end result? I mean, these people are not merely selling illegal substances for profit, they're selling illegal substances that result in people dying. Should someone be held accountable for that?
Well, investigations like Project SATURATE, that's what we're committed to doing, is holding those accountable that traffic fentanyl and other substances, as you point out, that cause overdoses and often, in some cases, fatal overdoses.
Should charges, I know in some jurisdictions in the past couple of years, I'm not certain whether it's Thunder Bay or Sault Ste. Marie, but charges of manslaughter have been laid against certain dealers, where the Crown or the local police service has determined that this individual is trafficking to the point that what they're doing is resulting in deaths. Should this become the norm instead of the odd case here and there?
I can't speak to the norm. I'm familiar with what you're speaking of. And yes, when appropriate, those charges should be laid. I can tell you in the case of Project SATURATE, we worked with the Public Prosecution Service of Canada throughout this investigation and ensured that the charges laid in this case were appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Removing one piece of the drug trafficking puzzle, what's that going to look like in the street? Is it going to make our streets safer in a downtown core and the city itself?
Yeah, thank you. We sure hope so. We're hoping that an impact like this in our community. But as the acting superintendent said, unfortunately, when it comes to organized crime, when one element is moved out, unfortunately another element is coming right back in behind them. So again, we will continue locally and to work with our OBP partners to continue to target those individuals coming into our community and hold them accountable.
Thank you.